Pokemon and occasionally free prize Pokemon.
Yes.
But that's not where this matchup goes. This matchup is very much single prize. So if you're going to be going, and certainly, you know, we're talking about Isaiah here, if he's going to be going for his Raikou, his Dragonite, etc., he's going to have to be very careful because they're two-prize Pokemon, and Nicholas is playing 0 two-prize Pokemon. It is a one-prize deck all the way, so that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Those two-prize Pokemon are going to be a bit of a liability unless you can get enough benefit from actually bringing them out in the first place.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to see. I mean, we've had so much discussion about Lost Box, and now we get to see it here in the mirror match on stage for both these players. Let's take a quick look at our prize cards. Anything crazy that you see in there?
I mean, Switch Card for some reason cannot switch out of the prizes. Boom, nailed it. Outside of that, nah, it's pretty standard. All those 2 Lightning Energy, though, they do jump out a little bit. Just need to actually double check the list there. There's only 2. So that is very interesting. That is both of the Lightning Energy for Isaiah actually in the prizes, which could be relevant if he goes for his 2 prizes. As it stands, it looks like we are starting off with Nicholas, and he's got his Kyogre in the active.
Absolutely. Let's get into this. This is our Swiss round 2 of our European International Championship for you all. Nicholas Moffitt here on the left versus Isaiah Bradner. Like you said, we're starting off with Nicholas Moffitt's side of the field here with a Nest Ball. Kyogre is the active Pokemon as of now, and that Hawlucha is actually the active for Isaiah.
Yeah, neither ideal. You want that Comfey out turn 1, start using that flower selecting, get some cards in your hand, get some cards into the Lost Zone. Maybe, you know, as soon as you get 4 cards in the Lost Zone, Cramorant, great attacker in a matchup like this, where there's so many of those Pokemon. I mean, at least Kyogre has enough HP to keep it out of Cramorant range, which could be very relevant if Isaiah has a really good turn 1. But what Nicholas really wants to do here is start getting some Comfey out, getting some switching cards, and also that Radiant Greninja, which it looks like he's eyeing up from this opening Nest Ball. We'll have to see. He's brought Comfey and the Radiant Greninja to the front. So, yes, they are the 2 choices.
Yes, absolutely. But it is going to be that Radiant Greninja here joining the field for us off of that Nest Ball being placed directly onto the bench here for Nicholas Moffitt. So we are going to see some availability of some more cards to potentially be drawn if we do have the energy for discard. Did you get a look at the hand at all, Ross, on Nick's side?
I'm afraid I did not get much of a look at the hand, I'm afraid. Oh, I got to look at the card there, though.
Comfey flying across the screen there. But yeah, Nicholas Moffitt. As we talked a little bit about these players, but both these players are, you know.
Oh, it's not great. There is a Chorus's Experiment for next turn, and there's free energy for the Greninja this turn. But obviously, what you want this turn is your Comfey. It's all on this Greninja. That's basically everything we've got. It's an energy and a Hawlucha. I think we might be ending the turn with 0 cards in the Lost Zone, which is not what you really want to do, and we are. So a bit of a slow start there from Nicholas. Can Isaiah capitalize on that? Good news is he's not getting a KO with that Cramorant because there's actually nothing of 110 or less on Nicholas's side.
All right, well, here we go. Isaiah Bradner's turn now. Definitely a card you want to start with here, Chorus's Experiment. So that is going to allow Isaiah to bring 3 cards into the hand, 2 into the Lost Zone. So we are going to see some Lost Zone cards on Isaiah's side of the field. I didn't get a good look at what he's having to decide between now, but it looks like an energy and potentially, I think it was a supporter card going into the Lost Zone here. Let's take a look at the hand as well for Isaiah. It also doesn't look super strong. Saw a switch card in there.
So we'll see how she goes. He has got some energy in the prizes, remember, so that is very relevant. With 1 in the Lost Zone, 2 in the prizes. Could start running a bit low on energy if this carries on. We got a Sableye in hand, but there's no Comfey in hand still. So we have got
Comfey for either of our players.
Oh my goodness, so they've had a turn each, no flower select.
That.
Now the good news is we know Nicholas does have a Chorus's Experiment in hand, and he's got the Greninja, and he's got a Comfey off the concealed card, so this should at least be a better turn. Absolutely,
at least has some cards to work with now for this turn, which is great. So.
Oh, and he hit a Comfey on there, and there's a Pokegear, and there is a, the item card that goes and gets a Psychic Pokemon. I've completely forgotten the name. But either way, he's got that one. That's one.
Fog
Fog
Crystal.
Crystal, thank you.
Well, I think it's going into the Lost Zone here off of that Colress's Experiment, so not there for long, but we'll see what the other card is being placed here. So there's 2 currently in the Lost Zone for Isaiah Bradner as well, and now we have 2 for Nicholas Moffitt. So let's see if we can get some stacked up Lost Zone cards here as well for Nicholas Moffitt. Moving pretty quick here.
But he's got the Comfey, he's got the Switch card, he's got the things he needs here. This is a good, and there's a second Comfey in hand as well, which is why he was able to drop the Fog Crystal into the Lost Zone. So this is going all right.
Going all right indeed. So
and he just got an escape rope off that first flower selecting there. So that's another switching card here. So he should be able to get, if he can find the Cramorant, he should be able to get an attack off this turn. So there he goes. Oh, and that was a really good escape rope because it brings a Sableye active, which is a way more useful Pokemon for Isaiah to actually lose here. So, no, I love this. Can he get the Cramorant, though? He doesn't currently have it.
Can he get the Cramorant? Indeed, that is the question for the turn. We have the Fog Crystal, though, which is going to search out a basic Psychic Pokemon is going to be that Sableye as well. Awesome to see the Fog Crystal. You know, there was a lot lost for Lost Box, no pun intended, decks. A big card that we see that neither of these decks, of course, because it's gone, is Scoop Up Net, is something we no longer have. So different pivoting options are now needed, but of course things have been placed differently for these deck switch cards, as we've seen a ton of them. There's also a new stadium card that we might see come out later. But here we go. We're seeing that Flower selecting 4 cards now into the Lost Zone here for Nicholas Moffitt.
Yeah, it's worth noting off the Fog Crystal, he did pivot away from the Sableye when he got another Comfey, and then actually hit both Sableye. I'm assuming he's only playing 2, yeah. He hit both Sableye off of the Flower selecting, so one's in hand, one's in the Lost Zone. That is something to note as we get kind of a little bit later in the game. He is a Sableye down. The good news is he's got enough cards in the Lost Zone. That's lovely. There are 4 in the Lost Zone as it stands at the moment. So Cramorant is activated, which is wonderful. But he doesn't have Cramorant.
Yes, but just applying energy there to that Radiant Greninja getting charged up. That Moonlight Shuriken is dangerous here in this matchup, and it's kind of just a ticking timer here on Nicholas Moffitt's side until that Radiant Greninja is able to attack. So here we go, back onto Isaiah Bradner's side. Colress's Experiment from the hand being played, so at least going to see some more cards go into the Lost Zone here, 2 more, and then drawing 3 to the hand. Let's see if Isaiah has a little bit more to work with now, hopefully off of that Colress. I know I see a Colress that was drawn, but hey, now we have a Comfey. Ross.
We do, and actually quite a big point about Isaiah starting with a Hawlucha here. Hawlucha plus a Sableye can actually KO 2 70 HP Comfey, like we were talking about before the game.
Yes.
But without Scoop Up Net in the format at the moment, I'm not sure Isaiah's actually got a way to get that Hawlucha back to hand to use its ability. So I think that double Comfey KO play is actually taken away from Isaiah here, but it's still potentially on the board for Nicholas.
Yes.
That could be a swing as we go through the game. So if I'm Isaiah, I'm a little bit worried about dropping down 2 Comfey at the same time, potentially activating that double KO with Sableye play, because I don't think Isaiah can pull that off, not with Scoop Up Net having rotated.
All right, here we go. So Kyogre is joining the Lost Zone pile here for Isaiah. And I believe we've already used that flower selecting. At least the first flower selecting, because another Comfey is coming down onto the field as well for Isaiah.
It is indeed. I should mention, obviously, the Hawlucha could if it was KO'd and then brought back with someone like a Clara. But if I'm Nicholas, I do not want to KO that Hawlucha. I love that Hawlucha not being an option to be used. Because that double KO could come in absolutely clutch as we get later on in the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Hawlucha has definitely lost its impact here, being the starting Pokemon. That is something that you want to play from your hand. To get those extra damage counters. But here we go. Second flower selecting is going to be that Beach's Court, hitting the Lost Zone here into a Hisuian Heavy Ball. This is a card that's sticking around for us, and it is being slotted into Isaiah's deck. So Isaiah is going to get a look now at the prize cards, taking some notes, making sure that he writes all those prize cards down. This is going to relieve so much mental space for Isaiah to not have to worry about tracking down those prize cards. And now Isaiah has that information that those 2, the only 2, Lightning Energy are in the prize cards.
Fun little side note about Isaiah's deck. There are 9 one-of basic Pokemon in his deck. So Hisuian Heavy Ball absolutely putting in work. So we do see a Nest Ball coming down here. This might be time for a Cramorant. It could be a Manaphy as well. Now, you'll notice, of course, that Nicholas does have 2 energy on that Greninja. So clearly, you know, just an energy attachment away from being able to take a double KO on the bench. So this is the turn Isaiah has to get that Manaphy. Nicholas has essentially, you know, telegraphed, hey, look, I'm going to use Greninja if you don't play Manaphy here. So this is a turn where Isaiah absolutely had to get the Manaphy down and does. It's a small play, but it's going to save him a prize going into this turn. So yeah, good on Isaiah there, just getting that Manaphy down, blocking that. Admittedly, quite well telegraphed play, but it's one of those, with Nicholas's start, he didn't really have much of a choice but to telegraph.
Yeah, so much pressure being applied there from the potential Moonlight Shuriken for sure. So we are back over to Nicholas Moffitt's side of the field now, starting off the turn here with the Flowers selecting. Also a pretty big hand here from Nicholas Moffitt. Going to be able to look at these 2 cards, choose one more additional to put into the hand and one to the lost zone, which is going to add up to 5 cards now in the lost zone. Of course, we're looking for that 7 cards at least to unlock some Mirage Gate action.
With the Pokegear, was looking for that Chorus's Experiment. That's why you play the Pokegear, to give yourself easier access to it in the early turns of the game. One of the main reasons anyway. Unfortunately, doesn't hit it off the Pokegear there, because there is a chance, and it's a lot to ask, but there is a chance Nicholas could get potentially a double KO with Sableye here. We see another Pokegear.
Top 7.
And another, I mean, he gets the Clara, admittedly, but that's not what you're looking for. This turn, you want Chorus's Experiment. You want more cards in hand, more cards in the lost zone. Because now that the Radiant Greninja play has been taken away, it's kind of, what Cramorant onto a Comfey, take the first prize. That's, unless you can pull off the Sableye play, which without a Chorus's Experiment is way more difficult, I suppose that's probably the best attack you've got.
Here we go. We're going to see a Concealed Cards at least to draw 2 more cards here for Nicholas Moffitt. It's just going to be an energy, though, and I believe, escape rope here for Nicholas. So, yeah, would have loved to see that Colress for sure, get some more cards into the lost zone, get some draw as well. But hey, sometimes that's how it plays out with those Pokegears. I've been in that position so many times where you even use multiple Pokegear and you just can't get it. It's only the top 7 cards.
Oh, I remember playing that way back in the Heart Gold Soul Silver era when we were so reliant on supporter cards, and it was a real lifesaver. Now, we do see an escape rope here. And we did see Nicholas eyeing up a Nest Ball there. Yes. So I kind of like what he's doing here. He's playing the escape rope, trying to, you know, see what Isaiah chooses. Isaiah puts up that Holucha, like I've said. If I'm Isaiah, I don't mind that Holucha getting KO'd, because then I can at least get it back with a Clara and have access to it later in the game. It's doing nothing for me sitting out there on the field, whereas Sableye's a good attacker. Comfey can go and get cards and put cards in the lost zone. Manaphy's protecting my bench. That Holucha is doing absolutely nothing, so a fairly easy decision for Isaiah there. And now Nicholas, he's got the Nest Ball, and he is playing it. So are we going to go Cramorant here and start the prize race? Are we going to go Manaphy and just give ourselves a little bit of extra protection? Does look like it's the Manaphy that's being eyed up. And neither player here really wanting to start the prize race. I mean, Nicholas here could have gone for a Cramorant and got the KO on the Holucha, but I think a little bit worried about giving his opponent access to too many other things going, you know, having potentially that Holucha back. And neither player really looking to take the initiative and really start running away, getting those early Cramorant KOs here. Just content to set up and get a bunch of more cards in the lost zone.
Yeah, sometimes that's how the strategy goes with this deck, and it comes down to those later turns, taking, you know, potentially multiple prize card knockouts here in the future, but you really have to get a strong setup and navigate through those turns to get there. All right, Isaiah Bradner's side here on the field. Let's see if we have a pivot option out of this Holucha so we can get into some more flower selectings from Isaiah. Currently at 6 in the lost zone here, so just shy, but hey, not for long, because we have the Colress's Experiment. Now 5 cards, and 3 are going to go to hand and 2 in the lost zone, which is going to be 8 in total in the lost zone. Isaiah, of course, working through what needs to be picked here, because these flower selectings, the Colress's Experiment, these are all options. They get you cards, but you also have to discard cards into the lost zone. So some heavy decisions. It is going to be that Dragonite V and that Raikou V. So both of those double prize card Pokemon hitting the lost zone here. So single prizers.
Yeah, so like we said at the beginning of the game, they're a bit too much of a liability.
Yep.
In some matchups, they're brilliant. Here, you want to be trading 1-for-1, trying to get double KOs with Radiant Greninja and Sableye where you can, otherwise trading 1-for-1. What you don't want to do is put these, your Raikou, your Dragonite active and potentially give your opponent an easy 2-prize knockout. It's not the way these decks are supposed to run. So in a mirror match like this, yeah, that was an easy choice off the Chorus's experiment. We do, however, see an escape rope. So now Comfey is in the active. This is big because this will mean Flower Selecting puts card number 9 into the lost zone. We are 1 away from Sableye being activated, of course, as I've mentioned already. Not having that Hawlucha makes such a huge difference. Hawlucha plus Sableye as a combo. There are 3 70 HP Pokemon on Nicholas's side of the board. That would be awesome. It's not there at the moment, unfortunately, so we see another escape rope into another Flower Selecting, and that should be 10 in the lost zone if my maths is correct, Boo.
I think you are correct, Ross. I'm pretty sure that's 9 currently in the lost zone. Yep, that has ticked up too. So this is going to be 10, which is going to unlock that lost mine. We talked a little bit about Sableye. Which side of the field do you think you want to be on, Ross?
There's nowhere to escape in this matchup, Boo. Both players have Sableye.
I know.
We do see that new Beach Course Stadium. Of course, some people remember that. It used to be called Sky Arrow Bridge. It reduces the retreat cost of basic Pokemon by 1 colorless energy. It was great back when we called it Sky Arrow Bridge. It is great now we call it Beach Court. It's one of the good new tricks Lost Zone have got to make up for the loss of Scoop Up Net. And it does seem like we are seeing Sableye here. And I'm sorry, I know I've mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again. Hawlucha would make this such a better play. It would be a double KO. It would be.
If only the Scoop Up Net still existed here. Hawlucha with that flying entry. When you play it down onto your bench, you get to choose 2 Pokemon and put 1 damage counter on each of them. So it does add that additional damage that you need for these multiple turn knockouts here. But yeah, not having that as an option is pretty brutal, unfortunately, for Isaiah, having started it turn 1 there. So we are going to see, though, that knockout there from Isaiah onto the Manaphy, and we're going to see the prize card taken as well. So first prize card being taken from Isaiah Bradner. Now we're back over to Nicholas Moffitt's side. There's still that damage on that Comfey as well from the rest of the Sableye Lost Mine. Now it's just coming back into the active here to stack some more cards into the Lost Zone with that Flower Selecting.
And we've got to point out Manaphy was the obvious option there. Of course, you take Manaphy off the board, and then Isaiah Bradner can use Mirage Gate to get his own Radiant Greninja next turn and be working on a double KO in that way. So Manaphy was the obvious option. You had to get rid of the Manaphy. So now with Nicholas, you're going to be wanting to see a similar kind of thing. I think Sableye is probably the play you want to go for here. The difference is, potentially, you do have the Hawlucha. Now, you don't have Quick Ball anymore. We have Nest Ball. And the huge difference between the two of them is Nest Ball puts the Pokemon directly onto the field, which means you don't get coming into play abilities like Hawlucha's ability. So you have to find it not with Nest Ball. It is actually in hand, though, and he's got Sableye in hand. Does he have a Psychic Energy? Nobody has a Mirage Gate. So potentially, I think Nicholas, and we've got a switch card as well. So it looks like we're going Radiant Greninja into the active for the moment, but that Manaphy is going to hurt this play. I'd like to see a Sableye play here with the Hawlucha, getting rid of a Manaphy and a Comfey.
All right, so we're gonna see just the knockout here on with the Moonlight Shuriken onto the Sableye. So a prize card now here for Nicholas Moffitt, matching prize card to prize card. Now we're going over to Isaiah Bradner's side.
And of course, the reason you go after the Sableye here is that Sableye can still just keep dropping damage counters. Yep. So essentially that was Nicholas going, look, I know I'm not getting full value out of this Greninja because you've got a Manaphy on the bench, but I really don't want your Sableye to keep dropping 12 damage counters, so I'm going to get rid of it. It's not necessarily the play you would have wanted to do, but I think it was the play that turn you had to do. So as much as I wanted the Sableye play, that's why you have to KO the Sableye with Greninja there.
Yeah.
So here we go, Chorus's experiment, and at this stage, it's just for draw.
Yeah, definitely. Just for draw. You know, more cards going into Lost Zone, but 10 is the max that we're looking for here. So Isaiah Bradner is still making these difficult decisions, though, because at this point in time, you're also kind of dwindling down your resources for the rest of your turns. And we've said this so many times, Lost Box is just one of those decks where you have to navigate through thinking about 10 turns in advance sort of thing, you know? You have to make sure you have all the resources to carry out your exact strategy in the later turns of the game. So it's still important to make sure you're keeping track of what's getting lost zone, what's getting discarded, and what is still in your hand here. But yeah, just working through these flower selectings, tons of cards now into the lost zone, and tons of cards in hand now for Isaiah Bradner as well, which just unlocks, you know, hopefully whatever strategy he's going for this turn.
Yeah, that's what the Lost Zone decks do. Of course, there's a few powerful plays that could be made. There could potentially be another... Oh, we've seen Echoing Horn putting Manaphy back onto the bench here.
Look at that.
I kind of like this because it's just another weak Pokemon to sit on the bench. And of course...
there's double Manaphy now.
Double Manaphy. You don't need 2 Manaphy. So that is a completely wasted bench space. I really like that play from Isaiah Bradner, just really annoying Nicholas's bench. And we saw Nicholas go, I'm not letting you Sableye. I will get rid of the Sableye. And Isaiah's like, oh, really, mate? Really?
I got another.
Nah, it's all right. More Sableye. Now, this should be the final Sableye until we see some, you know, Clara getting it back. But then again, Isaiah does play double Clara, so there are potential for Sableye to just keep coming back turn after turn. And it looks like Nicholas is conceding the game there.
Yep.
And Isaiah, a wonderful, you know, goes up 1-0. The Echoing Horn play with the Manaphy was beautiful, really focusing on that Sableye to just annoy and get rid of those Pokemon was beautiful. A really well-played game there.
Absolutely. That was just too much pressure here that Isaiah was applying there with those Sableye Lost Mine. And, you know, when you're in these mirror matches for the Lost Box decks, it is kind of a race to the Lost Zone.
Yes.
And a race to who can start taking those knockouts first. As you've mentioned plenty of times here as well, Ross, these are single prize card decks that we're working with. So getting a lead on those prize cards is so important, and especially when you continue to apply that pressure with those Lost Mines, it's just too strong. The Echoing Horn play was amazing as well. You know, the lack of scoop up net now, it puts these players in awkward positions. Isaiah not being able to scoop up that Hawlucha, but hey, Nicholas Moffitt getting stuck with 2 Manaphy on the field as well. So we're seeing the lack of that card kind of showcased at the forefront here on the stage. Yeah,
that was the big card that all these Lost Zone decks lost, you know, when we got into the rotation. That was the big card that we kind of had to say goodbye to.
Yes.
And Beach Court's fine as a pivoting option, giving you a free retreat once per turn. It is not the same as a scoop up. Now, you know, how many times have we seen people use concealed cards on Greninja, then scoop up net it, play it back down, and then use concealed cards all over again? Of course, you can only use 1 Comfey per turn, or you can only use each Comfey once per turn.
Yes.
But if you scoop up net it, it kind of resets it. When you play it down, it's a new Comfey in a way that doesn't happen when you retreat it to the bench. So that scoop up net really was just an absolutely phenomenal card. One of the best cards we saw in the Sword and Shield era. So much utility in so many different decks. But these Lost Zone decks, they have adapted. They are still absolutely great. And, you know, Isaiah 1 game up. Of course, that game took quite a long time. So a big advantage if you win game 1. Oh, 2 Comfey. And Isaiah only plays 1 Manaphy. That could be very big. The only Manaphy in the prizes.
Really?
Nicholas plays 2.
Wait, but we do have the Hisuian Heavy Ball at least.
We do.
And look, we're starting with it.
There we go.
Ross, oh my gosh, that's so wild. Well, Hisuian Heavy Ball at least saving the day here for Isaiah, able to take a basic Pokemon out of the prize cards and replace that Pokemon with the Hisuian Heavy Ball. So this is a card that has showed so much utility in past formats and is still sticking around here and being slotted as such an important inclusion to this deck, especially when you only have 1 Manaphy.
Well, my response was gonna be, yeah, but it's an item card. You're only playing, you know, as a one-of, and finding a one-of item card, even in a deck with good draw, can be a very difficult thing. Before we even get around to saying that, Isaiah's like, mate, I got it in my opening hand. We are good.
Chill, we're fine. You know, never punished here. All right, here we go. So the Comfey, at least a much better start here from Isaiah, because we do get a flower selecting here off of that active Comfey. We're going to see Sableye come down onto the bench here for our turn 1 as well. So we now have 1 card at least in the Lost Zone. We'll see if Isaiah is able to do anything else on this turn. Of course, Isaiah is going first, so not able to play a supporter here. But we're going to see the pivot into the Sableye from that Comfey. So Comfey joining the bench here.
Yeah, and that's really just to protect against a potential Cramorant KO. Sableye, of course, has got, a little bit of extra. But it's not just, the HP. They're both going down to a Cramorant. It's the fact that Comfey is so good at drawing you cards.
Yes.
And if you don't have much else and your only Comfey goes down, your deck can start stuttering quickly. And what we're seeing in the Lost Zone is just the tech attackers. Ones you're putting in for other matchups. They're not good in the mirror, and that's all we're seeing going into the Lost Zone here.
Yep, all right, so on Nicholas Moffitt's side, going second here. So this is first turn for Nicholas, but going second allows Nicholas to play Colress's Experiment. So such a huge factor of this deck is going to get those cards into the Lost Zone. Already has 2 in there and 3 to the hand as well. And is now just taking a quick look as through the deck off of that Nest Ball. So we're going to see a basic Pokemon come on to the bench. The Radiant Greninja was the starting Pokemon here for Nicholas too, so that's not something you can use until it's charged up and ready to go. Something you also probably want to protect as well. You can use that concealed cards ability, but as far as attacks, you want to kind of keep it protected. So hopefully Nicholas has a pivot card to get that out of the active position this turn and get into some flower selectings.
Yeah, you want Radiant Greninja turn 1. You just don't want it in the active.
Yeah,
the ideal
exactly.
situation is Comfey in the active, Radiant Greninja on the bench, and then you start drawing cards, throwing cards into the Lost Zone. That is exactly what you want to do on turn 1 here. It's interesting, we didn't really see either player stretch for a Cramorant in the previous game to try and force the prize race.
We didn't see a single Cramorant, did we?
Didn't. Yeah. We saw both players kind of setting up, racing to the Lost Zone, really focusing on Sableye, and that worked beautifully for Isaiah. It didn't work so well for Nicholas. So it's always interesting to me when we go into game 2 to see, are these players going to pivot? Are we going to see Nicholas going, right, well, it didn't really work game 1. Maybe in game 2, I can rush ahead, try and get some cheeky Cramorant KOs. And that, you get a couple of cheeky Cramorant KOs, you get a double KO with Sableye or with Radiant Greninja, and all of a sudden you can be ahead. I love early game Cramorant, and there were certainly times in the previous game where, a player had a Nest Ball and a pivot option with 4 cards in the Lost Zone, chose instead to work up to that Sableye. So I'm really interested to see, are we going to see a pivot away there and see a bit more Cramorant, or is it still going to be, you know what, it's still a Sableye thing? Oh, Pokestop!
Ooh, I was going to say, look at that. Pokestop here. I guess, it's keeps the items to the hand, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so you discard free cards on the top of your deck. Any item cards go into your hand. Any non-item cards remain in the discard pile. And do remember, of course, that nowadays tool cards are not item cards. So Pokestop gets a tiny little nerf there because it can no longer get you those tools. Not relevant in this particular matchup, but it's a big change. And people need to know.
Yeah, you play a lot of item cards in this deck, and we saw 2 of them, one of them, I believe, being the switch cards, and now both of these switch cards are being utilized from Nicholas Moffitt. Of course, an energy did go into the discard pile off of the Pokestop, but look how much this has now unlocked here. We're going to see the concealed cards for an additional 2 cards.
There's the Cramorant.
There's the Cram into the escape rope here.
Oh, that's such a good play, because like I said, at the end of the last turn, you don't want to KO the Sableye, you want to KO the Comfey. What does Isaiah have in hand? Because there's no Comfey, there's no board presence really at all.
No. Oh no, I top decked the Battle VIP, but that's just going to be too late, unfortunately, because Isaiah is far past the starting turn here.
Oh, so that is not a good Pokestop. The only item you get is one you literally can't play.
Discarding one of those lightning energy and a beach court, and the Battle VIPs is the VIP pass is the only thing rescued there. Hopefully this Colress brings something better here to Isaiah Bradner's hand. It's
a huge Colress experiment. We know he's got the Manaphy in hand, but Manaphy, all that's going to do is just kind of buy a turn given a KO. So we saw a pretty quick, a pretty decisive Colress's experiment, so it looks like Isaiah knows what he's after here. But this is what we were talking about with the early game Cramorant. Cramorant can put on so much pressure in the early game here. Maybe in the last game it just didn't come out fast enough and it was a couple of turns in and it wasn't right. But it looks like we're benching a Manaphy, and if that's all we've got, I think Nicholas is probably going to win a pretty quick game 2. He passes over, so Nicholas is at least going to go 2 prizes up with a significantly better setup and a significantly better board presence. So all we're going to see from Nicholas here, how many cards can I get into the Lost Zone? This is going to be absolutely huge. I don't think he can win this turn, not with Scoop Up not having rotated out. but this is still going to be huge.
So Isaiah Bradner actually has 2 Comfey in the prize cards.
Yep.
Even after that Hisuian Heavy Ball that drew out the Manaphy that was in the prize cards.
But you had to get the Manaphy because he only plays 1.
Exactly, but now also being down a Comfey as well, at least at this point in time, Isaiah Bradner's in a difficult position here. Not to mention the, the powerful board state that Nicholas Moffitt has at this moment in time as well. Taking up here to 7 in the loss zone now here for Nicholas Moffitt.
But that escape rope was huge because that forced the Manaphy active.
Yep.
Now you carry the Manaphy with Cramorant and there's no bench protection for Isaiah, so that potentially opens up a double KO with Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken next turn, and that's going to be 4 prizes in the first 3, in 3 turns for Nicholas. And
Huge.
At that stage, Isaiah needs to hit something really big next turn, or this game 2 is going to be over in literally a minute or 2.
Yeah, you have to think as well, there's 21 minutes left on the clock, so if this is going to look like it's going to go into a 3rd game between these players, Isaiah needs that to happen as fast as possible to be able to hopefully clean up another game and take the win for the set. But Nicholas Moffitt just chugging away here with these turns. Cramorant is going to knock out that Manaphy, so there is no more bench protection at this point in time, but Isaiah doesn't even have anything on the bench here. We're seeing a Pokegear that at least gets a Colress's Experiment out off the top 7 cards here for Isaiah. I believe there was still one in hand, though, as well, so just thinning that out of the deck, super important too here for Isaiah Bradner, and we'll see what else that can get him for the turn.
I mean, the best case scenario here is really KOing a Cramorant with your own Cramorant, getting a prize back.
We're seeing the Pokestop here, but that's gonna...
Oh, got rid of the Cramorant with Pokestop. It's not an ideal
Pokestop.
Situation.
And that Colress as well, so both of those going into the discard pile.
Only plays 1 Cramorant, so yeah, that's game.
Yep, that is going to be
Isaiah scoops it up, and we are 1 game each here. That Cramorant was the only one. Isaiah, like I say, 9 one-offs in the deck, including Cramorant. And that's what happens. You get a couple Comfey's prize, couple early KOs with Cramorant, and that was a very decisive game. And that's kind of the essence of a mirror match, I suppose. Both players are trying to do the same thing. And now, I mean, we might not have seen Cramorant in game 1, but oh, that was a beautiful example of how great Cramorant can be.
Yep, Cramorant, incredible card, just free attacking as long as you have 4 cards in the Lost Zone. So amazing inclusion to these Lost Zone decks, amazing Lost Zone card. Isaiah Bradner got super unlucky there, unfortunately, with those prize cards as well, having so many Pokemon that really get you through your deck, the draw engine. But yeah, had to go for the Manaphy off of the Hisuian Heavy Ball because that's so important to make sure you're protecting your bench from those Moonlight Shuriken. So that was just not Isaiah Bradner's game, unfortunately, to take down. But hey, that means, Ross, we get a game 3 at least between these players. So
First
we get
game
to see
3 of the
this.
week.
Look at that! Into our game 3 in our round 2 of our European International Championships here. Both Radiant Greninja is the start here for our players. And we are over on Nicholas Moffitt's side here to start the turn. So going first, gonna start with that Pokegear to get a Colress right off the top.
Yeah, one important thing to note, these decks, they don't tend to play things like Judge or any of that. So you're probably not going to get your hand disrupted here. So you can absolutely afford to use Pokegear turn 1, go and get that Colress's Experiment, because you know your opponent isn't going to disrupt your hand, so you know you're going to be able to keep it. That is a rough Pokestop getting rid of a Manaphy. He does play 2.
Yeah, I was about to say, Nicholas does play 2, unlike Isaiah's deck here. So at least we still have the Manaphy in the deck, hopefully.
But it's still not ideal, unfortunately. Have we seen the prizes for this game yet?
No, I don't think we did see the prize cards here for our players.
So hopefully we'll get a peek at the prizes in a minute. Just
there we go.
Both Sableye for Nicholas in the discard pile. That could be relevant because we saw how good Sableye was game 1. And I'm just, 2 Sableye standard in this deck. So yeah, it is 2 Sableye. They are both in the prizes and not the ones you're going to be taking. So if I'm Nicholas, I've just searched my deck. So I've just realized both my Sableye are prize. I'm going aggro Cramorant. I need prizes to try and liberate my Sableye from those prizes.
Yes, I know that Nicholas also does play the Hisuian Heavy Ball as well. So as long as it can be somehow sought out of the deck, either off of like a Colress or a Flower Selecting or just drawing into it, that is an option there too.
But it's still a one-off item. You shouldn't hit your one-off item that regularly.
I know. Yeah, but it's happening. I mean, I guess when you have Pokestop, it's it's a little bit more common,
Yeah,
right?
I'll give you that. Pokestop does have quite a lot getting those item cards. Pokestop terrifies me as a card because every time I use it, I just like, there's my special energy I desperately needed.
I
There's
know.
the attacker, which is brilliant in this matchup, gone. It's a terrifying
It flashes before your eyes, too. Just a quick 3 eliminated potentially for you. So, yeah, I don't think I would feel comfortable playing Pokestop. But, hey, that's what our, at least Nicholas Moffitt has slotted into this deck to help out here. Because, I mean, Lost Box does play a ton of item cards. So, I guess you're more likely to hit it than not, right? Here we go, Flower selecting our first one for the turn here. We also saw the concealed cards, I believe, already. That's why that Radiant Greninja is rotated there. So 1 card into the Lost Zone here for Nicholas Moffitt's turn 1. And now let's see what the turn 1 looks like for Isaiah Bradner. You know, both of these players started the Radiant Greninja, which, as we discussed, is not a Pokemon that you want to start. I guess maybe better than the Hawlucha. But
You want to start it, you just really don't want it in the active.
Yeah, you don't want it in the active, exactly. You do want to have it for that draw engine of the concealed cards. But hey, you know what else you want to have, Ross? The Battle VIP Pass. At least Isaiah is going to see a lot more Comfey than anything we saw in the last game for him. So 2 Comfey onto the field now from that Battle VIP Pass. Much stronger starts, and I'm sure feeling a lot comfortable, a lot more comfortable in this matchup than the last.
Well, he plays for, and he gets another one off of the Pokestop. Well, he didn't hit any. He plays a full 4. He saw none in game 1, none in game 2. So double Battle VIP Pass, game 3. I think he's earned it here. But we don't see Nicholas playing Battle VIP Pass. This is something which we only see on Isaiah's side of the board. And this is why. If you can hit them early doors, I mean, look at that setup already. That is looking, you get a few switching cards and you are golden.
Absolutely, yeah. The Comfey are out on the field. The Manaphy protecting them with that Wave Veil spread across the board as well for Isaiah Bradner. Definitely a great place to be for sure. And yeah, hitting it off the Pokestop, that's what happens. You know, you get to utilize the Pokestop, but you also give that ability to your opponent as well. And now we're going to see the switch card, which is going to allow the switch into that Comfey prize, or sorry, not a prize, a card hitting the Lost Zone as well into a hard retreat into the other Comfey. So, ooh, it's going to be a Colress going to the Lost Zone. So I assume, was that double Colress?
Yeah,
I think it was.
Double Colress. You don't usually drop a Colress in the Lost Zone unless you hit double Colress.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate for Isaiah, but I mean, I guess it's a decision that you make because there's no decision to really be made. But here we go, 3 cards now in the Lost Zone. Gonna tick up to 4 here in a second from that Colress. So 3 cards to the hand as well. Cramorant coming down here as well as that Sableye. 4 cards in the Lost Zone means we can see the Spit innocently, but because of the escape rope, bringing that Radiant Greninja up, it is just going to be that 110 damage, which is not a knockout on that 130 HP Radiant Greninja.
No, and you can finish it off with Sableye later on, dropping damage counters, but what you really want to do there is get the KO on Comfey. But if that's the only way you can get it into the active, you're still getting a lot of damage on the board, you're still setting a KO up for later on in the game. It's still a decent play, but you'd rather have the Comfey, especially when your opponent only has 1 on the board. We saw how devastating it was in game 2 when Nicholas took out Isaiah's only Comfey, and with a couple of prizes as well. Oh, we see one hit the Lost Zone off of Chorus's Experiment, which is not ideal, but are there ones in hand or ways to get ones in hand? Because that would be usually why you'd be willing to drop a Comfey.
Oh, look at that. Switch card healing some of that damage off of the Radiant Greninja. You know, so many times we see switch card that's just switching, but it also does have that healing ability as well, which is applicable here. So super strong. Definitely seeing a Flower selecting off that Comfey as well here for Nicholas Moffitt. Gonna lose that Snorlax into the Lost Zone. Opting for the escape rope to keep to the hand here. Another Comfey coming down. 1 was sent to the Lost Zone. Now we have 4 in the Lost Zone here into an escape rope. Isaiah Bradner chooses first. Is gonna choose to bring up that bulky Radiant Greninja, 130 HP.
Getting a bit of deja vu here, Boo.
I know, right? So, I mean, it is the mirror match, right? So, yeah, so Isaiah was able to get the initial damage put onto the field, which, as we've mentioned, you know, it's not just a race to the Lost Zone, it's a race to taking knockouts as well. So getting that first damage is pretty strong here for Isaiah, but Nicholas already healed some of it off and now is going to be getting Nicholas's own damage onto the field soon with this Cramorant.
Well, we do have another escape rope, and I was looking to see if that was played. It does get played, and now we're going to see the Cramorant come into the active, and now Isaiah can't put the Greninja up, so just getting a KO on that Comfey is going to be good. We see the Manaphy coming down to protect against a Radiant Greninja double KO. This is actually a really good turn from Nicholas here. This is basically what you want. You're taking the first prize.
Yep.
You've got a really good board established, which you didn't have at the beginning of the game. You healed a little bit of damage off of that Greninja, just doing the maths a little bit more annoying. This was pretty much everything Nicholas could have wanted.
Yeah, double rope plays are so strong, and you see why here, forcing your opponent to put up something that you want to knock out here, and that is going to be the knockout for Nicholas Moffitt, taking the first prize card. Now it's over to Isaiah Bradner to respond.
Yeah, and he starts off with a flower selecting, and he's got a lot of cards in the Lost Zone. He's got 4 there already. So 1 flower selecting in the Chorus's Experiment, that will put you at 7. That will activate Mirage Gate, which admittedly, as we've seen, is not huge in this matchup because you're not generally going after those big attackers. And certainly with a Manaphy on Nicholas's side of the board, Radiant Greninja's less good, but you're still getting his cards on the Lost Zone, building up, and, you know, getting closer to Sableye, which we've seen is a big deal in this matchup.
It is a very big deal in this matchup, indeed. So that Chorus's Experiment putting more cards into Lost Zone. It's going to be up to 7 here. Yeah, the Sableye is already on the field as well for Isaiah Bradner. Getting a quick look at the hands as well and the decision being made here. What goes into the Lost Zone? Oh, tough decision. Yeah, that's a lot of good cards there. It's going to be an escape rope. You hate to lose that going into the Lost Zone. All right, we have the Echoing Horn play, which is going to be bring that double Manaphy back. We saw this in game 1 from Isaiah Bradner. Super strong. Clogs up a bench space for Nicholas Moffitt, and now we're seeing it again. The Echoing Horn, such a strong inclusion tech card here to bring out a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile to the bench. So that Manaphy now has a Manaphy buddy joining it.
I mean, you've got to love some Manaphy, and I've got to shout out the Haganasuke artwork. I adore that artist and that artwork. What I do find really interesting here is bringing out your opponent's second Manaphy while powering up your Pokemon that hits the bench. But, I mean, we could be seeing a play here with Hawlucha potentially getting a double Manaphy KO and then bringing in your Radiant Greninja the turn after for a double KO. But it looks like instead all we're going to do here is just KO on the Cramorant. And that works. I mean,
no, it's not. Yeah, it's not a KO.
It's not a KO on the Cramorant. No, it's only 90.
Yeah, so it's 90 to 2 Pokemon.
Yes.
But because that Manaphy is there, you can't do that 90 to the bench. So it's just going to be the straight 90 onto the active Cramorant. You know, Radiant Greninja is so strong when you're able to place, you know, 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. But at this point in time, it's just going to be that 1. But still.
There's going to be a big Sableye double KO coming up, though, because there's 2 Pokemon that are very close to being KO'd. So Isaiah's thinking, like, fine, I can't actually get the KO, but my boy Sableye has got my back.
Yes.
It's going to be okay.
And that's the whole point, of just putting those early damage counters out to take multiple prize knockouts in the later games. So Isaiah is navigating this and putting those damage counters out, and we don't have Scoop Up Net. There's no Scoop Up Net to just wipe that damage off the board. So putting the obstacles in place with the double Manaphy, getting that damage out.
Okay. Nicholas. I thought that was a Pokestop. Sorry, I
no, you're
interrupted
good.
you.
No, you're good.
I oohed because I thought he was using Pokestop and hit 2 energy.
Yeah,
Turned out it was flower selecting.
We're good. Much better experience there. Yeah, we'll see if Nicholas does choose to still utilize the Pokestop for this turn as well. But at this point in time, just deciding which energy to hit the Lost Zone here. It's going to be the Psychic, keeping the water energy. We mentioned this before in our round 1 of the Gardevoir mirror match. You know, there's no water energy in that deck for the Radiant Greninja, but this plays Psychic and Water here to power up multiple attackers, including that Radiant Greninja. So just making that decision here, mapping out what energy I'm losing, what's already in the Lost Zone. You know, Nicholas Moffitt actually has that Dark Energy too, and that Moltres card, which we haven't even touched on in Nicholas's deck.
It's not good in this particular mirror match.
It's just so cool though to have in the deck, you know?
Oh, it's a Mew counter. It's a very cool Mew counter. But there's 3 Psychic Energy in Nicholas's deck, so. And there's 1 in the discard now as well, and 1 in the Lost Zone. And obviously, we need that Psychic Energy for Sableye. So, in terms of energy here, Nicholas is in a little bit of trouble now. The last one isn't prized. Of course, we do know that both the Sableye are currently prized. I don't think we've seen Hisuian Heavy Ball hit the hit the board yet. So
No, it was, oh yeah, no, you're right.
so
you're
I
right.
believe, although he doesn't have access to Psychic Energy, he doesn't actually have access to Sableye at the moment. That's giving Isaiah a bit of an advantage. So Nicholas does go 2 prizes up, hasn't hit the Sableye yet. He's hit 2 other prizes. So this is a turn where if I'm Isaiah, I'm thinking Sableye all day long here.
Sableye all day long. That's definitely a position you want to be in as a Lost Zone player for sure. All right, so we see this Nest Ball bringing out a Comfey to the bench here on Isaiah Bradner's side.
Yeah, he's gone for that Comfey off of that Nest Ball there, just making sure he's got more options. Of course, he knows his opponent plays an Echoing Horn, or at least he suspects, because it's generally, you usually play one in this deck. So there is an argument, yeah, here we go, filling up your bench. Because if you've got a full bench, your opponent can Echoing Horn you. And admittedly, you know, Isaiah keeps doing a double Manaphy, which I'm sorry, I find really funny. But there's not such an obvious thing that Nicholas can hit Isaiah with, but having a full bench just kind of avoids. Now, we actually know the Echoing Horn is in the prizes, but there's no way Isaiah would know that. So potentially protecting against that, potentially just building up your board. And also, if you want to use Sableye a couple of turns in a row, you know what? Yeah, have a couple on the board, have them ready to go. Because I think we are going to see a couple turns here from Isaiah of aggressive. And I love this play. So what we're actually doing here is putting 6 on each of the Manaphy. There's no scoop up net. At some point in the future, Isaiah's just going to go, boom, Hawlucha for double KO.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is so strong here for Isaiah Bradner, getting that damage spread out everywhere. There is no way that Nicholas can really heal it besides with the switch cards that we see in the list, but that's about it. There's no scoop ups here for Nicholas Moffitt, so we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely been a ticking timer here of damage all across the board here, and it's getting scary, if I do say so myself.
It's getting scary and it's getting clever, because what he's doing here is he's not opening up space on Nicholas's side of the board.
Yeah.
He could potentially take a 4 prize KO next turn, but as it stands at the moment, Nicholas has still got that double Manaphy out. So Isaiah's going, I don't need to take prizes this turn. I'm going to take all my prizes next turn, and then you're going to go from, oh, my board's clogged up and I can't play any Pokemon, to, I have very few Pokemon out. And this is a really clever play from Isaiah here, just basically trying to force Nicholas into awkward situations. And I love this from Nicholas. He's putting the Manaphy active. If he leaves it there, it's not a Hawlucha target.
Not a Hawlucha target.
Oh, he's using Switch Cart.
Oh, it's a heal it as well. So now it's a Hawlucha target, because Hawlucha does have to put those damage counters onto the benched Pokemon, but the Switch Cart is going to heal that Manaphy from just being knocked out from it. So
that's kind of beautiful.
Down to 30 damage there onto the Manaphy. So at least healing there from the Switch Carts, utilizing those to the best of his ability here. Cramorant's now in the active position. Currently for Nicholas Moffitt, we're seeing an energy retrieval here as well, or sorry, an energy recycler, I should say, to recycle up to 5 energy back into your deck here. So putting all of those back into the deck. 2 of them are going to be placed onto the Radiant Greninja, of course, off of that Mirage Gate now. 2 separate types of energy need to be placed on it, but hey, 2 water is all you need for that Moonlight Shuriken. But
Isaiah, I think, sorry, I did cut you off, Bill. I do apologize. I'm getting too excited here.
Go, Ross, go.
I think he can do it with a Sableye, because if my maths is correct, you need 2 on the Cramorant, 4 on the Manaphy is 6, 1 on the Manaphy is 7, 5 on the Greninja is 12, and then I think he would be 1 short. No, that would work. I think that's perfect. I think he can drop 12 damage counters, and if my maths is correct, I think it's 2 on the Cramorant, 4 on the Manaphy, 1 on the Manaphy, 5 on the Greninja.
Quick maths here.
I think I could. I'm doing this on the fly while I'm trying to watch the game and everything else. I think that actually still sets up for a 4 prize KO from a single Sableye here. I think that works.
Oh my gosh, we're seeing the energy recycler here from Isaiah Bradner. These decks are looking quite thin for both of these players, so having these recycling cards, Isaiah Bradner choosing which cards to put back here is going to Mirage Gate onto the Sableye here.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
If this is what I think, if this is going to be what I think
you've
it's going to
been waiting for.
It doesn't have to be, though. Again, you've still got... So here we go. So we get... Now, when we don't... Remember, you don't have to do it all in one turn. We can set up for potential Hawlucha plays next turn. We don't have to do it. We can actually see a 6 prize turn next turn.
I was about to say, can we see a 6 prize turn because of the Hawlucha?
Yes, we literally, we very
my
easily can.
goodness.
But
that would be history.
But then switch card could kind of ruin it, so...
There's 2 minutes left on the clock. Ross, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but I think that's going to be enough time to close this.
There's plenty of time.
Yeah.
I believe I think Isaiah can do a 6-prize turn. It's going to be awkward.
Gosh.
It would be great.
That would be epic. That'd be so epic to see Isaiah Bradner take a 6-prize turn, and not even that, just taking the win in this Swiss round 2 as well.
Oh, there's so many numbers on the board.
There's a lot.
Now,
yes.
what I really like here, and again, Isaiah is playing this beautifully, there are 3 Pokemon that are now in Hawlucha range, which is huge because it means a switch card from Nicholas wouldn't take away the double KO with Hawlucha.
But look at this Echoing Horn bringing out a Pokemon onto the bench for Isaiah Bradner. It's going to be that Raikou V, so that's clogging up a bench space.
And you're going to need, the other thing is, you're going to need a Clara to get, I believe that's all the Sableye now that Isaiah's played. So we're going to need a Clara next turn to get the Sableye back, which is a real fly in the ointment. And you've got to be thinking, oh, actually, there is a Clara prize.
Yeah.
If Isaiah drops Hawlucha and then takes the KO, then he is actually then going to be able to take 2 prizes, but he's not going to have a bench space for a Sableye. So that Echoing Horn was kind of huge.
It was huge. It was huge.
You can't play Hawlucha and Sableye next turn.
Yep, that was huge, as well as doing a ton of plays here, manually retreating the Cramorant into the Manaphy, and then switch carding the Manaphy to heal another 30 damage from the switch card as well. So healing off that damage, utilizing those switch cards, Ross, you know, that is such an important card I'm seeing now for these current builds of Lost Box decks.
It is, but Isaiah played this so beautifully because there's still 2 Pokemon in Hawlucha range. But his bench space, he's got 1 bench spot, and he really needs, now there's the Clara, so that's going to get the Sableye back, that's easy. But now he's not going to be able to go Hawlucha, and you see the speed here. Isaiah's
going, coming out.
I can't do it in 1 turn. I need 2 turns. Yep. Isaiah is going to make sure time is not called on his turn.
Absolutely. 26 seconds left for these players. Definitely going through this turn quickly, but that's all you needed, the Sableye, to put these 12 damage counters onto the field in any way possible. So spreading these out as fast as possible. There is so much damage right now on this field, Ross.
And we need to be super careful. And again, Isaiah being very, very careful here. One of the issues Isaiah could potentially run into here is running out of Sableye. He's used 1 Clara. He's used both his Sableye. His other Clara is prize. He can liberate that Clara by taking prizes with Hawlucha, but then he won't have a bench space to play the Sableye, and it looks like
that's just going to be it. I think Nicholas extended the hand here.
It looks like Nicholas has...
I think they're just calculating the math
There's
here.
a lot of calculating math. I think Nicholas... Has Nicholas got enough to take 2 prizes this turn? We're going to need a little bit of confirmation on this one. There's so much going on. Isaiah's put the damage around. Now, there was potentially Nicholas able there to...
So time should have been called here, I think, because we hit the 0 on the clock. So I think we're just making sure. But I think it was Nicholas who extended the hand, I'm pretty sure. So I feel like that was a win for Isaiah Bradner.
Yeah, it is a win for Isaiah Bradner. All right, I thought it was, but it's one of those. But until we actually get the confirmation, I don't like to call it. Isaiah did such a good job there, just spreading all that damage around, making sure, and I love that he wasn't taking prizes. He was making sure that Nicholas couldn't do extra new stuff, couldn't play down new attackers, you know, really left Nicholas with a super awkward board. And that's what I love about the way he was playing that game. He was deliberately not taking prizes until he absolutely had to, and he ran into a little bit of awkwardness there with potentially the bench space after the Echoing Horn, but he had enough there to finish it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Even with Nicholas trying to do the best with the switch cards, Isaiah Bradner was able to clean things up there. And it's funny because I don't even think we saw Isaiah take a single prize card at all in that match, but still won there. So winning that match, Isaiah Bradner going up to 2-0 so far at EUIC. That is an incredible way to start, Ross.
Yeah, it's always good when you can start 2-0 at an international championships. I'll be honest with you, would have been nice if there had been a slightly clearer end to that game. But that's Lost Box in a nutshell. There are so many things going on. You're dropping damage around. You know, there's some cheeky little KOs going on with Cramorant, but then there's lots of damage being spread around. And I think, you know, Game 2 did not go Isaiah's way. Game 2 was a mess. You have your 2 comfy prized, you lose 1 early on to the Cramorant. That just wasn't working. Game 3, he saw an opening. After using the Echoing Horn, he basically looked at Nicholas's board and went, I don't love your board, and I don't think you love it. So I'm going to take prizes. It's going to happen one of these turns. But what I'm going to do in the first place is I'm going to frustrate you, and I'm going to leave you with a really suboptimal board, basically forcing you into using Cramorant every turn. And I'm willing to give up a prize here and a prize there because there is going to be this big explosive turn where I completely wreck your setup.
I know. I would have loved to see the 6 prize card turn, Ross. So it would have been epic, especially seeing it for the win as well. But yeah, for the set, that would have been awesome. But hey, I mean, you see how strong these Lost Box decks are, and I guess how the mirror can possibly play out between both